Hello, everyone. Today we are on my grandparents' property because it is Thanksgiving. This video will likely be released on October 10th. And yeah, this is definitely not my usual filming spot, but the leaves are very pretty around here, which I think I've said in the past 3 videos. Yeah. I hadn't really thought of anything to talk about today. Might be a little bit of a slow day topics wise. But hmm. There's an interesting dilemma for me between living in the moment and capturing the moment. Because for me, I'm someone who likes to look back at photos and videos I took during a certain time period to remember it. Like, that helps me remember. Not everybody is like that, but it also begs the question, how much of your time should you spend when you're doing something, taking photos and videos? Because if you spend more time, then you may get better results in the future. You may remember that place better because you took those beautiful photos and videos. I know people who will take no pictures on a camping trip. I myself will take thousands of pictures on a camping trip sometimes. And I'm really not sure where you find a balance between those two things. Here today, though, I find there's opportunities everywhere. Whenever you go to a new place, there's always new photos to take. But for the people that live there, they've gotten used to it. They don't see those photos anymore. And you might say, oh, well, they've already taken all the pictures that they can. But have they? Because I have very few pictures from my backyard. But I'm sure to somebody who's never been there before, they'd find something interesting. But if I put it all in an album, it would be less than 50 pictures. So how does familiarity taint our artistic eye? And how can we stop that from happening? I myself have been known to travel far distances from home in order to capture the pictures that I want, because I don't find the climate of my home to be very rewarding to take pictures of. And while that did change when I got a camera, because I had different ways I could take pictures, the fundamental reason why I wasn't and still am not taking as many pictures near my home hasn't changed. And it's really not because I've already taken all the pictures that I can. I think if I lived somewhere else, I would love to take pictures where I live. But I don't. So why is that? Around here, there's so many beautiful fall colors, and even some trees and bushes that are still green. And I just find very interesting compositions in those. But when a place becomes normal to you, that doesn't really mean anything to you anymore. You don't have the thought of, oh, this barn, it makes a nice composition with the sky and part of a tree. You don't think, oh, well, what if I wait until the leaves fall? Because this happens every year. You don't think about what you left behind in the new. The new is long gone after such a time living somewhere. You're forced to find a new way of doing things. And usually that way involves going somewhere else. And it makes sense, there are many people that travel the world, so they can always have this sense of newness, so that nowhere is ever familiar. And while that may work for some, what can you do as a photographer to make what was once new again? You know, maybe you got into photography after you moved somewhere, so you already have that feeling of familiarity, but you never took any pictures when it was new. You know, for whatever reason, if you weren't taking pictures during that time, you won't have gotten those pictures. But you come back a year, 2 years, 5 years, a decade later, you might find new compositions that you never thought of, even when that place was new. And so everything is very unique in what you capture, because you can never capture anything that's the same if you always think about it differently. Like all these leaves that are in front of me, I could take a picture from down low. I could get a macro shot. Or I could use them as a foreground and take a picture of this bench with them leading up to them. It's really beautiful how they swoop along just because of the way the wind has hit the yard. But one of those, or both of those, may not occur to somebody at any given place in time. You're not always going to think about how you can make a shot work like that. You know, all this greenery, if you're used to living around greenery, you may not find it too inspiring. You might think, oh, well, there's not much to take a picture of. But I, coming here as someone who does spend time outside but has little in the name of greenery in my home, I still don't see that. Because we have a garden. This is normal for me. We've had a garden for 3 years. The sense of newness has long faded. When I got my first Android phone, still didn't know how to use manual mode, but when I got my first Android phone, one of the ways that I tested it was I took a picture of a tomato. And by all accounts, it was a good picture. But it's different in some ways now, because when I look at that picture, I don't think, wow, I've improved as a photographer. I can go out there and get a better one. I'm just disinterested because I've been living in this place for so long, my home, that sense of newness is gone. And the only way to bring it back is to think of things creatively, to think of things differently. You know, everybody always tells you, be different. Well, to be different, you have to think different. And that's not always so easy as making a different decision. You can't always decide when things are going to change, even when you have an incentive to change them. Until you subconsciously are ready for a change, it won't happen. Not in a way that's healthy or maintainable. And so I'm just thinking of ways that you can make something that was once new again. A few weeks ago, well, a week ago, I was doing macro photography. I was just walking around my neighborhood that I lived in for so long and just laying on the ground, you know, nothing special. I was just laying on the ground and I was getting these very interesting viewpoints. I showed one in a previous video. of this bush. But there were many more, like of a pine cone. Of course, I've seen pine cones before. But when you really get down low and try to take a new picture, things change. You change. The photographic experience becomes not just a process of capturing the new, but can also become a process of capturing the old in new and creative ways. You don't have to stay the same. You're not wired that way. You don't like change, but you need variety in your life. You live somewhere long enough, you lose that variety, even when it's an inherent property of where you live. You know, pine trees. I've lived here my whole life, here in Canada. These trees are synonymous with the word Canada. Spruce trees. The only thing more patriotic than a spruce tree in Canada is the maple tree, and that's on our flag. But these trees, they don't really move me. And while I'm sure that I could find ways to creatively capture these trees, I can't think of a reason to, because I've lost that sense of newness. And for a limited time, I might be able to get down low on the ground, take a macro shot, and I could find newness in that with these trees. But still, it's the same thing that I've known for so long. I've known it since a young age. The needles, they'll poke you. The branches, they're tough. They don't turn brown in the winter. They stay the same. The sap is sticky. None of this is new to me. But how do I make it new? Because while there is infinite newness in the world to anyone, could more value not be found in something familiar? Could more change be found in the same? Anyways, I've been going around taking pictures today. I will start the slideshow now. I'm sure there will be a lot.